Hello again, and welcome to another layout update. It's been ages since I've done a layout update, so I can't really remember what I've actually covered in the last one. So I'll just sort of generally go around the layout and discuss various things that I've been doing recently. So one of the major things I've been doing that some of you may have noticed in previous videos is I'm slowly weathering most of my trains. As you can see here, we've got the 56, which looks a lot better now I've had another go at it properly with the airbrush rather than messing around with tins of paint and brushes. I've also weathered the 58, which you haven't seen since it's been weathered. This has been weathered using a real picture of 58 number 41, which took a little bit of work to find, but I did find a nice picture of it looking nice and grimy. So that's been weathered. I've also weathered the Class 33. This again has been weathered using a picture of the exact loco from about 1989. So you can see underneath we've got loads of brake dust and general grime and a little bit of a spillage around the fuel. It's kind of difficult to see with the lighting up here, but there is a spill there. Also done the exhaust smoke and toned down the big white panel that sits on the top of the 33s. Another thing I've been doing is the dual carriageway over here. It's just been sprayed up, but it'll have various white lines added to it, and the central reservation will be painted because at the moment it's all the same colour. And that will have walling going down the side, and there'll be a back seam that goes all around it, and will hide the helix. So that should look quite good. That's all in progress. Also been adding a little bit of vegetation and bits and pieces along the back there. There's weathering the track, which you've all seen. I will be doing a video on how to weather the track. That'll probably be the next video actually. It's quite easy to do because it really doesn't matter if you make a mistake. You just go, oh well, that's a bit of a splodge there, which was realistic. But it's good fun and it's good to practice with the airbrush. So I'll show you how to do that. As you can see, it makes a massive difference. I'll also be weathering the Class 60. The Class 60s were brand new at the time the layout's set. So this will be extremely lightly weathered. There will be a little bit of dirt along the roof, and the underframe will have a little bit of brake dust, and very little weathering will be done to the sides because these locos were brand new. This particular one, 60 number 62, was finished in 1990 or 1991, so it just fits into the era of the layout. But I had to get it because it is generally my favourite loco of all. It is fantastic. Probably definitely the best loco I have as far as running qualities and detail. Other favourite locos include the 56, but that's purely because it was my first proper DCC engine. It's also very nice as well. It's another Hornby loco. Moving along to the town scene, I have done a little bit more work. First thing I did was completely remove it, which was a big test. This is designed to be removable so I can get underneath and fix any track work issues. I was never sure if it was going to work, but fortunately it is removable. I have some little screw-in hooks that I screw in various hidden places underneath the houses, and then the whole board is lifted out, leaving the plastic walls where they are. While it was up, I weathered the track underneath the tunnel, and I've also fitted a wall on the inside, so it looks nice and realistic. I've done the same thing on the other side as well, just to be sure, as well as adding a little bit of vegetation and stuff down here. This ballast still needs weathering and dulling down to look a bit more like that. Over here I've done a similar thing, started to weather the track in this area. I've only really just started on it really, but it's getting there. This point has been weathered, and various other bits and pieces have been added in, as well as the grass, and weathered that brick wall. Let's move along from there. We move on to my latest project. This is 50 number 34, called Furious. This particular one has come out extremely well. I'm very pleased with it, and it shows that my airbrushing skills are improving. I have completely repainted the blue all the way along here. I've redone the grey all the way along the bottom. Painted the axle boxes yellow and then weathered over the top, so they're quite difficult to see, which is prototypical. That's what you ended up happening. Weathered all the roof, so you can see you've got all the exhaust dirt and a little bit of fan dirt. This was a passenger locomotive, so it was generally kept relatively clean. So only things like vents and stuff got grime. So you can see around here got various bits of grot and grime, and then of course you've got the usual brake dust and fuel spillages and stuff along the bottom. The finishes come out really nicely, and I'm just generally really happy with it. Certainly the best job I've done so far as a respray is concerned. This one is so good, in fact, that the other 50 number 23 has gone back downstairs to have some more work done onto it to bring it up to the standard of this one. The reason why this one has come out so much better than the other one is purely because of the paint that I've used. When I painted the first one, I used Rail Match Network Southeast Dark Blue. It just comes in a little pot. This paint, I don't know if it's just the pot I've got or just the colour in general, but it dries with a very, very sort of sandpaper-like finish. It's extremely difficult to get it to dry smoothly. That causes the transfers not to adhere properly, and the colour was also slightly off. It wasn't a perfect match for the carriages. So what I did after that, when I went to move on to this one, was I mixed up my own sort of homebrew of Network Southeast Blue, and as you can see, it's come out very nicely. It's a nice smooth finish, and as you can see, the transfers adhere nicely, and all of the carrier film on the transfers completely disappears and merges in with the logo like it should. Same for the number over here as well as the tops plate and the electricity overhead warning symbols. So we move straight over here, and as you can see, we have a new arrival. This is Class 20, number 90, by Bachmann, in the very attractive Rail Freight red stripe livery, one of my favourites. This hasn't been weathered yet. Of course it will be weathered, and it is paired to the Blue 20 I resprayed when I first got my airbrush. These locos have been set up on the lens to be double-headed, and are now running at perfect sort of exact speeds and pull the wagons very nicely. One of the questions I get asked quite often is, will I be getting an HST or a high-speed train? And the answer is yes. I've finally got round to getting one. This was the last one in stock in Hatton's, so I simply had to buy it before it disappeared from the shelves completely. It's a fantastic model. I'm extremely pleased with it, but as you can see, I haven't got any carriages for it yet at all. It's just the two power cars. So you will see more of that model in the future, but it won't have any carriages, so it won't really feature on the layout properly until I've got a full rake of carriages for it. The carriages are quite difficult to get hold of. They're made sort of every now and then by Hornby, so your only chance of getting them is when they briefly come into stock at the model shops, or simply by trawling eBay every day looking for someone who's willing to sell you some. So I will be slowly accumulating the carriages. It'll just take a little while. I'll give you a quick brief overview of the model. As you can see, the front of it is much sharper and much more well detailed than the old Hornby / sort of Lima model from the 1980s. You've got fantastic bright LED lights in the front. There is also an illuminated cab light that operates when the white lights are on. It's quite dim, which is useful, so when the train is driving around in the daylight you can't see it, but during the night you can clearly see that the inside of the cab is lit up. Again, the paintwork is spot on. It's all very nicely applied. Detail on the roof is about 50 times better than the old model. It's all much more to scale. It does have these quite large, sort of older style Hornby couplings. That's so you can couple it up to the Mark III coaches, which are made from older tooling. I generally don't like the tension lock couplings. I much rather use KDs. But because these are the bigger, sort of older style of tension lock couplings, they do actually work instead of these narrower ones, which tend to be about as unreliable as an Austin Allegro. So yeah, there's the HST. Something else I've also finished now is I've finished weathering the Mark II Network Southeast coaches that are pulled by my Class 47s and Class 50s. It only seemed right, having resprayed a Class 50 and weathered it, to have it pulling correctly weathered coaches. I'll do the same treatment to the 47s and the coaches they pull as well. So all these coaches have been weathered. They're fairly subtly weathered, mainly sort of a grotty, dirty underframe and a slightly grimy roof. You'll be surprised how much of a difference it is to just take the body off and weather the underneath, such as the bogies and the wheels, and not weather the body side at all. So they look like they've sort of, generally been looked after, but they also look realistic at the same time. So they're all done. I will be getting possibly another first class coach or something to make it a train of 7. I can just about accommodate a 7 coach train in the station, and I always figure the longer the train, the better it looks. So that'll be something else to add to the future. I still haven't done any work on this area, and there is a good reason for that. Over the last couple of months / weeks, I've been contemplating in my head on an extension. Now, there's a good number of reasons why I want to do this. The first reason being this beam here. It's, first of all, it's ugly. Second of all, it's in the way. And third of all, you can't see the hill or the tunnel, which I built some time ago. So there's a problem. Another issue is round about sort of here, there is a small bump. It doesn't affect any of the trains, they all run over it fine. It doesn't uncouple anything, and it doesn't look particularly unrealistic or anything, but I know it's there and it bugs me. I ideally want to have the layout running as level as possible, which will allow all the trains to be, as smooth as they can be. So I'd like to iron out that little bump over there, but on the whole it's not a massive problem. Something else as well is this curve, the big long curve runs all the way around. Although being very relaxed, I think if Hornby ever made a curve this wide, it would probably be about sort of radius 8 on the outer. It's very nice and relaxed, but I would like it to be a little bit smoother, take a bit more of a sort of longer curve and go off a bit further. It would generally just make things look a bit more realistic. I could run trains a little bit faster, and I'd have a little bit more running space. To move this board back. Now, how far I'm going to move it back is roughly going to move it back by its entire width. So if you imagine this front of the board, when I move it, will actually be here, where the back of the board is. So this hill would end up being sort of over there somewhere. If we have a look underneath, there's a beam that runs along the floor somewhere. Can't quite see it, but generally the layout would move back by about 2 feet. And by doing that, I can have a much longer, more relaxed curve going into the back of the layout, and I'll get an extra 2 feet of running space because it will be 2 feet further back. So hopefully what I'll be able to do is move this helix, the whole thing, as one assembled piece by disconnecting it at the top and the bottom. Should be able to move it right the way back. I'll go as far back as I dare, and I've worked out that I could possibly end up with an extra 4 feet of running space for the main lines. So you imagine the main line starts over there and it comes down. It may not reach the tunnel until about here, where that fan is, so all of that extra space. Plus it would be 2 feet further back, which would move it away from this beam, allowing you to see directly down the main line without this intrusive plank of wood in the way. So to do this large extension, obviously I'm going to need some more wood, and I'm going to need to build a bit of extra baseboard, both going back and going down there. Hoping to start that sort of late September time, maybe October. So it'll take a while, but in between now and then I'll keep you posted on various updates and bits and pieces that I'm doing on the layout. At the moment I'm generally focusing over there on the town scene, and to the left where we've got the dual carriageway joining onto the retaining wall. So there you go, hope you enjoyed the update. I'll try and get you another video a little bit quicker next time. I've been on holiday recently, so that's for the lack of updates. And I'll just show you a quick shot of the 20s working together around the layout. And that's it really.